The untold downfall of classic Hollywood's most beautiful stars. They were called the most beautiful women in the world. Magazine covers couldn't get enough of them. Men fell in love with their faces before they ever heard their voices on screen. But beauty in Hollywood was never a gift without a price. Behind the soft lighting and studio glamour, two of the most photographed women of their era were quietly falling apart, and almost nobody noticed until it was far too late. This is the story of what happened after the cameras stopped flattering them. Early career. Veronica Lake arrived in Hollywood in the late 1930s as a teenager, almost by accident. A talent scout spotted her at a Hollywood drugstore, and within a few years a single strand of hair falling over her right eye became one of the most copied looks in America. Studios didn't just cast her, they built an entire image around her face. Hedy Lamarr's path was even more dramatic. Born in Vienna, she fled Europe just before the outbreak of World War II, arriving in Hollywood with almost nothing but striking looks and a quiet intelligence most people overlooked entirely. MGM signed her within months, and the press immediately crowned her the most beautiful woman in films, a label she would carry and quietly resent for the rest of her life. Two young women, two very different journeys to the same gilded cage. Neither of them yet understood what that label would eventually cost them. Horse, peak fame. By the early 1940s, Veronica Lake's peekaboo hairstyle was so widely imitated that the US government reportedly asked her to change it, concerned that female factory workers copying her look were getting their hair caught in wartime machinery. She starred alongside major leading men of the day, becoming one of the defining faces of film noir glamour. Hedy Lamarr, meanwhile, starred in major MGM productions throughout the early 1940s, becoming one of the studio's most bankable stars. What almost nobody in the audience knew was that, during this same period, she was also co-developing early frequency hopping technology that would later influence modern wireless communication. A brilliant mind hidden behind a face the world had decided only mattered for its beauty. Both women were at the absolute top of the industry. Premieres, fan mail by the thousands, their faces on every newsstand in the country. But fame built entirely on appearance has a brutal, ticking expiration date, and neither woman controlled the clock. Behind the studio gates, the pressure was relentless. Veronica Lake later described feeling trapped by a public persona that had almost nothing to do with who she actually was. Exhausted by directors and producers who valued her look far more than her instincts as an actress. Her personal life was equally turbulent, marked by multiple marriages and a deepening reliance on alcohol that colleagues began noticing on set. Hedy Lamarr faced a different kind of pressure, a studio system that refused to take her scientific work seriously, repeatedly steering her into roles that traded on her looks while dismissing the intellect she tried to bring into the room. She married and divorced 6 times, each relationship adding to a growing sense of public scrutiny she never asked for. Both women were applauded for their faces and quietly dismissed the moment they tried to be seen as anything more. That tension was about to catch up with both of them, and neither the public nor the studios were prepared for what came next. By the early 1950s, Veronica Lake's struggles with alcohol had become impossible for the studios to ignore. Roles dried up, her marriages collapsed. Within a decade of being one of the most recognizable faces in America, she was reportedly working as a barmaid in a New York hotel under a different name, occasionally recognized by stunned customers who couldn't reconcile the woman in front of them with the icon they remembered. Hedy Lamarr's decline took a different, equally painful shape. As studio roles disappeared with age, she became increasingly reliant on plastic surgery and reclusive habits, and in later decades was arrested more than once on shoplifting charges that made headlines far larger than her film work ever had by that point. The woman once called the most beautiful in the world spent her final years almost entirely out of public view. 2 careers that had once defined an entire decade of glamour ended in barrooms, courtrooms, and locked apartments. And the saddest part may be how preventable both declines actually were. Legacy. Today, Veronica Lake is remembered as one of film noir's defining faces, her hairstyle still referenced in fashion and film nearly a century later, even as her personal struggles remain a quieter footnote to most fans. Hedy Lamarr's story has been dramatically rewritten by history. Decades after her death, the US patent she co-developed during her Hollywood years was formally recognized as foundational to modern Wi-Fi and Bluetooth technology, meaning the woman dismissed for decades as just a beautiful face is now honored in engineering halls of fame she never lived to see. Their legacies prove something uncomfortable. Hollywood rewarded these women for their beauty while they were useful, and largely abandoned them the moment that beauty faded or their ambitions reached beyond it. The recognition many of them deserved often arrived decades too late. Fame, especially the kind built on a single photograph or a single unforgettable scene, was never built to last a lifetime. Veronica Lake and Hedy Lamarr were two of the most photographed women on Earth, adored, copied, idolized, and yet both spent their final years largely forgotten by the very industry that made them famous. Their stories aren't just about beauty fading. They're about what happens when an entire identity is built around something that was never permanent to begin with. So the next time you see an old black and white photograph of a woman the world once called flawless, remember, somewhere behind that perfect lighting there was a real person fighting battles the cameras never showed. If their stories moved you, subscribe, because next time, we're revealing the leading man Hollywood quietly erased from its own history.